Hey, it's Zoe, and this is the 400th episode of the show. That was kind of my experience when I thought about 400 episodes. It's a lot. It was a lot. I remember interviewing one guest, and I said, "Oh, you're my number 70 episode." He's like, "Wow, that's quite a lot." I'm like, "Here I am, many years later on episode 400. It's actually episode 400 plus a few because we didn't count all the little pieces that I did in between, which were kind of mini episodes, little thought bubbles. Any case, 400 episodes, it's a lot. So I had a couple of things I wanted to say to celebrate and to share the insights over this time. The first thing is thank you. I am so grateful that I can continue to do this. My business funds this enterprise. I don't have any sponsors, which means all my clients who pay me to do their facilitation, strategy, and culture work and leadership training and executive coaching, that funds this podcast. So I'm very grateful to all of my clients who have invited me into their businesses and into their worlds to assist them on their leadership, strategy, and culture work. And it also allows me to continue this deepening education for me as a podcast host. I get a lot out of this personally, as well as for the listeners. And together we are on an extraordinary journey of improving leadership towards a better future. So I'm grateful for all of them. And I'm also grateful for you, the listener, who tunes in every week. And some of you have been tuning in every week for 9 years. Yes, 9 years. I thought it was only 6 years I've been doing this. It's been 9 years. I started in 2016. Oh my God. So thank you to all my long-standing listeners. I don't know specifically who you are because I have no way of knowing, because that's the way podcast platforms work. If you are one of the listeners who's been around since the beginning, please email me and let me know. I want to send you a thank you present in the post, literally in the post, something fun just for you. So please do that. Email me, zoe@zoerouth.com, so I can send some gratitude towards you for supporting the show for that long. All right, so I want to start with that. Now on to what I discovered as I looked back at the huge amount of episodes over the last 9 years. First of all, 9 years ago was 2016. Who was I back then? And how have I changed or not? Well, 2016, I was 2 years into working full time in my practice, and I was working my buns off. I was seriously committed to making this enterprise work as a full time practice. And I was hustling, I was learning, I was leaning in. I had written 2 books at this stage, Composure and Moments, my first 2 books. I had big goals, big dreams, and massive self doubts. I was like, can I make this work? I've tried twice before to have a full time practice. Do I know what I'm doing? Am I good enough? All the usual little gremlin stuff that sits on your shoulder while you're getting in the way of doing good work for the people that you care about. So that was me in 2016. And I launched this podcast as a way of promoting my Edge of Leadership Unconference, which I ran for 3 years, 2016, 17, 18, or 17. Anyway, I ran it for 3 years. And the idea back then was I wanted to interview leaders who were doing good things in the community and showcase how business can be instrumental in building community. It was kind of an advanced leadership maturity concept. And as a way of getting people involved and interested in the Unconference as a new event, I invited these leaders onto the show as part of promoting them, their business, their work. So it was a win-win-win. I thought, very clever. Why haven't I done it since? I don't know. Because these good ideas, they come and go, and that's the nature of my brain. What I need is to systemize my work. I need to get Emma Rainsville back into my world. And that's a guest who was on a couple of weeks ago. Okay, so that's where I was back in 2016. The themes or content is really centered around 3 areas: leadership, to be wise and compassionate, developing a bigger sense of us, who us is, and to look far, deep, and wide around the issues and trends and contexts that surround us so we can make better business decisions. Second theme is around teams and how we can work better as teams to deliver on our work. And the third component or themes across the years have been around living better, so self-mastery and self-management. In terms of what I've learned, I think I can sum it up with a big word called diversity. And in interviewing that many people, I've discovered that people have very different life experiences, very different perspectives, and all of them have something to offer. In fact, it was in 2019, or is that episode 201? I can't read my own writing. I interviewed Yen Perkis. This is kind of like a moment of sliding doors, I guess, or shifting sands. A, a transitional moment for me in interviewing Yen Perkis, who is a non-binary person. And I wasn't familiar with that term or with that experience that someone would be having. That is their lived life. And Yen showed me a lot of what that was like to live a life that was not part of the mainstream norm. And it was eye-opening, honestly. And it deepened my compassion for many people who don't fit into these narrow band of norms that sometimes we are oblivious to because we swim in them. And I think that's probably a hallmark of what the podcast has done for me over the years, is that I have these little moments where my perspective expands. And I'm hoping that's the same for you as a listener, that in the interviews and the conversations that you experience through the show, you get an insight, a practical tool, an inspiring story, and occasionally these sort of, oh my goodness, kind of illumination moments. And certainly the conversation with Yen was one of those. So I went through every single episode to look at the content, and I started shortlisting, what were the standout ones. And I had to do that 3 times because the list was so big. And then it's still kind of unwieldy, if you like. And so to filter it down, I have 3 categories of shows, of episodes. One were the highlights. So like the honor roll, I think there's 12 episodes that go on the honor roll where these conversations or topics changed or expanded my thinking. It's like, oh my God, hell yeah, that needs to go on the review of the honor list. So I narrowed it down to 12. If I looked at the topic and the person I interviewed went, oh yeah, that really kind of rattled me or opened me up, then that went on the list. So I'm going to share those 12 episodes with you in just a second. There was a handful of really good stories that were moving in some way that are worthy of putting on the honor roll. And there was a whole bunch that were practical and useful interviews, which had pragmatic tools for leaders on every day. So I want to capture some of that for you. And we will put all of those links in the show notes. So you can go, if you can't remember whatever I said or which episode it was, we will link all of that. So Donna's going to do all the hard work for me. Donna is my assistant who helps publish the show. She goes through and does all the show notes and posts it up to the platforms and everything. So yay, Donna. This is going to be a big task. So let's go. Where to start? I'll start with the good stories, and then I'll finish with the 12 episodes that really made a big difference. So these are really cool. Episode 86 was an interview with Laura Marshall, who is somebody I worked with at Outward Bound, and she is an enduro athlete. And at the time, she was training for and completed afterwards I can't remember what it's called, the Arc to Arch. Yeah. In any case, she ran from London to Dover, which is pretty far, then swam the English Channel, and then rode from her landing point to Paris. Just one of those things is enough, right? So it's like 100 odd K, London to Dover, swimming the English Channel, which ain't that easy, and then riding to Paris. This is extraordinary. This is an extraordinary test of an endurance, and you have to train a lot for that. So I think that story is commendable, a good listen, and we'll put that link for you in there. I love that story. And here's episode 173 with Rachel Robertson, who was the head honcho at the Antarctic base, and she's gone on since then to be a thought leader and an author and a facilitator. And her stories about being in charge of Antarctica station are fascinating. So they still stay with me, and her insights are really apt. I love that story. Oh, and then there's episode 209 and 312, which, okay, it's a little bit of nepotism because I interviewed my nephew and my niece, Jordan Kibuka Masoki, and then his sister, Iman Kibuka Masoki. Both are very clever individuals, young Gen Ys, just out in the workforce, and their insights into what makes good leadership, what makes bad leadership, and what their experiences on the ground. Those were very illuminating. and really good to listen to, because otherwise my guests tend to be, a little bit gray, a little bit older. Really good to get the youthful voice and insight, because I don't have a lot of young people around me. So that was really great. Okay, so we have Second Chance Hiring. That was episode 226 with Jeff Kuzenko. I can't even read my writing. Seems to be a theme. I just scribble. And what I loved about this story and his accompanying book was how different businesses supported felons coming back and having second chance, and all the infrastructure they put in their business and support systems to help those people reinvent their world. Because it's not easy leaving jail and trying to be a law-abiding citizen and have life skills which you were never taught or never learned. So that was a really powerful story right there. Along the lines of that, we have John Graham, who I interviewed recently from the Good Samaritan Home, and his book, Running as Fast as I Can. Deeply moving. So it's a story of homelessness, similar in terms of people who end up homeless. Some of them drug addicts, and some of them are felons, etc. And how sometimes you just need a place to call home, and how he opened up the doors to his home and set up a refuge, and now a series of refuges. It's inspiring. These good-hearted, well-meaning individuals who build an enterprise around supporting others. Both those two stories are really emotionally powerful for me. And then we got Paul Glover, the incarcerated lawyer. He was quite interesting. So his is a different story. It's a story of redemption, I think, where he was a lawyer. He was a hotshot lawyer. He got caught up with his clients and sort of the hype of being one of the bad guys, or riding on the coattails of the bad guys, before he actually got put in jail himself. And then worked out, yeah, maybe there's a different way to live life, and maybe that wasn't so good, and maybe there is right and wrong, and how he worked while he was in prison to redeem his relationship with his wife and start a new life when he got out. So I think that was pretty good. That was Paul Glover. So those are the stories that stick with me. And there was also the story of, oh my goodness, where did I put that one? Sailing into the hurricane. Yep. Yes, with Manley Hopkinson. A very popular one, which is just extraordinary. That's really good. And then, of course, the top three, one of the top podcasts was, oh my goodness, that was Scotty, who is just mind gone blank. And of course, because I scribbled everything on these papers, it's not really helpful for you. Anyway, I will list the top three in the show notes for you. But these stories were amazing. Okay, now I promise you the top 12. And I want to keep this short for you. Otherwise, I'll just blather on about how awesome every single episode is, because they pretty much are. But these are the ones that go, yes. So episode 119, this was an interview with a gentleman called James Surwillo, who wrote a book on meta-modern leadership. And this is advanced leadership thinking and different concepts. And it was kind of a high order level conversation, which goes, yes, I still have the book. It's one of the books that's going to come with me when I make my move from Canberra to Newcastle later this year. It's going to come with me, the hard copy book. It's made the cut. A lot of books aren't making the cut. That one's making the cut. So that is James Surwillo, Meta-Modern Leadership, and big concepts about how these big trends are shaping the way that we do leadership into the future. Episode 175 was with Dr. Alan Watkins, and he's an advanced leadership maturity thinker as well. And he walked us through on the show how to solve any strategic problem. So he gave us, basically, it's kind of like holacracy process of interrogating the issue and the objections until you work it all out and you resolve anything. Well, that was really powerful in itself, apart from the integration he has with leadership maturity framework and the spiral dynamics and that sort of integral leadership thinking piece. So that was pretty good intellectual piece. Those two are kind of two big intellectual gears to grind as a starting point, but they were both kind of meaty ones for me. Ginny Whitelaw, Zen and the Art of Leadership. This was all about Zen and somatic practice and how to become resonant as a leader, how you can change your biology so that you can get in sync with the people around you and be more influential. I thought that was a really cool episode, and her book was really good as well. Oh, here this is what happened to me when I got this short list. I'm like, oh yes. This one was with 207, episode 207, with Liz Wiseman, who is the author of, she's two books. Her first one I love better than the second one. Multipliers is her first book. And it's an incredible piece of research and a great framework to look at how we can be multipliers of other people's strengths, as well as avoid being accidental diminishers, which I know my clients have found really enlightening. So the unintended consequences of good intentions gone wrong. That was awesome. And her work is awesome. So that's Liz Wiseman, episode 207. Okay, 224 was Carol Sanford. And she's kind of this woman has incredible intellectual grist and grunt, and trying to keep up with her expansive thinking is amazing. So she talks about regenerative practice, regenerative leadership, regenerative business, i.e., how do we create life, leadership, and businesses that are self-sustaining and growth-oriented, in that they're not exploitive or extractive. So these are big picture concepts. So a big grunt around that one. So Carol Sanford. So the 200s had some really good ones in here. Oh, and right after that was an interview with Brian Emerson on polarities, which is an advanced leadership thinking technique where two things that look like polar opposites are actually complementary. And you need to have those, manage the tension between the two to find a third way through. Powerful work. His book is really powerful. And that really has added sophistication to a lot of the work I do with clients and the way they go about thinking about their challenges. So often we have tensions to manage, not problems to solve. And sometimes it's useful to be able to pinpoint those and to find a third way through. So that is Polarities with Brian Emerson. All right. Oh, there we go. There's that other one. This is Productive Disagreements with Buster Benson. Of course, his name is awesome, Buster Benson. I love this interview. I loved his book. And it was one of the first books I read to help us navigate this polarization and to really lean into these difficult, constructive conversations. His book is called Why Are We Yelling? And I love the interview and I love the book. It was really, really helpful. Next one. Yep, another big one, 307. This was with Sam Slade, and we talked about holacracy. So this is the whole idea of flattening hierarchies. So in my book, Power Games, I talk about circles and triangles. Holacracies are about having more circles and how we can build autonomous teams and have less triangles, which is a command and control structure. In Power Games, I say you actually need both, but we need to manage the excesses of both of them and making sure that we're aware of the consequences of each of those cultures that we build and how we can integrate triangles and circles. Sam talks about holacracy and how we can make flat organizations or flatter organizations. 308, I seem to have a little bit of a rhyme with some of these. Brett King on techno-socialism. Brett's got a lot of experience as a futurist, particularly in the finance sector. He is one of the co-hosts of The Futurists. His show is pretty amazing. They interview authors, scientists, anybody who is looking towards the future and steering a path through it. His book of the same name, Techno-Socialism, I think offers 4 possible scenarios of the future when we're trying to integrate government, economies, and technology. And he advocates for techno-socialism. So rise of AI and robots will free up labor, except that we need to tax that robotic AI labor so it can fund a more egalitarian society. So I think there's some wishful thinking on that and a big change of values required, but that is sort of what's going on there with Brett King. Definitely worth a re-listen. And here's another fun one. This conversation with Dr. Mike Rucker on bringing fun to work. In listening to or experiencing that conversation, I had this of my brain open up and change perspective on what I thought was fun. And I revised a whole story around an experience of conflict I had years before with somebody at work where the conflict was, I said we should have fun at work, and the other person said, I don't think we should have fun at work. That's the essence of the story. I was shocked and confronted by her saying that. And I thought, well, there you go. There we have a complete difference of values. And I can't work in a place where they don't advocate fun. And in the conversation with Mike, he redefined what fun is, and it's different for each person. And it was kind of just like a aha, oh moment for me, where I'm like, I hadn't even thought that fun could be defined differently. And it was a fabulous moment of perspective changing on a dime like that, and being able to revisit that conversation and that conflict, and wish I'd had more awareness back then, because it would have saved me years of grief and could have had a very different outcome. And yet I'm grateful that I have it now. So yes, that was fun with Dr. Mike Rucker. And two other episodes, which were not interviews, but were book reviews, because these books were so powerful. One was The Listening Society by Dr. Hansi Freinacht, who again is another intellectual titan who looks at developmental theory and models to look at what is evolving in the meta-modern leadership space and what we need in order to navigate complexity, ambiguity, and the meta crisis, which he doesn't talk about, but other people are talking about now, which means meta crisis means there's a lot of crises happening all at once, if you haven't noticed. So Listening Society that was episode 67, and episode 89 is a book review of this book, Joyful. And this was such a powerful little book, and it changed the way that I looked at the world and where I could see joy and beauty differently. So I love this book. It's so pragmatic. Things like symmetry actually is a source of joy. When things line up and are orderly, it makes you feel good. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's why my husband is the way he is when he puts out laundry. I'm like, yeah, I can really appreciate what can be seen as anal retentive or pedantic, but it makes sense. If you hang the coat hangers all the same way, that feels good. If one of them is turned the wrong way, that feels bad. These tiny tweaks in our environment can bring us enormous amounts of joy. And I just absolutely love that book. So that's episode 89, where I go through all that. So that is the honor roll. I whizzed through all of them, and I've got to list all the other ones which were practical and useful. Okay, there's a couple here. Some of my guests have been fantastic. Alessandra Edwards, she's come on the show twice. Stacey Barr, she's come on the show twice, I believe, as well. Her work on KPIs. Alessandra about managing your executive health, I think, is really essential. One of my early interviews with Megan Bromley on culture was extraordinary. My favorite team book, interview with George Carceres, which he wrote Build Better Teams, was amazing. Rachel Odige, who wrote a book on busting biases, very useful. Oh, okay. Laura Fredericks and her book, Hard Asks, very practical and useful. And another favorite, Reading Fiction by Dr. Ann Kowal Smith. I love that conversation about how to use fiction to build better empathy and communication in your teams. And that's the short list of the honor roll. And I feel like I have to pick my favorite children, because I love having every guest. I learn something from each of them, and each of them has something to offer. So thank you to all the guests who've ever come on the show, given up their time and their expertise to share it with listeners. I'm deeply grateful to you for sharing all of your great wisdom and insight. And in many cases, give me a review copy of your book so I can take a look and grow as a result of that. So I'm grateful to them. I'm grateful to my clients, and I'm grateful to you, the listener. I'm grateful that I can keep doing this show. So here's to another, who knows how many more shows. We're still going strong. And hopefully that we continue to do so. Okay, now what else I have to say? My scrabbly notes here. Yes. When I boiled it all down into pithy takeaways, I'm hoping it's pithy takeaways, I realized in doing the show how important it is to stay curious. That's the first thing. The second thing I realized is that people are marvelous. The third thing, and this is a big one, that there are more good people than bad ones. Fourth thing, leadership is hard. It hasn't become any easier, even after 400 episodes. It's still hard. And the last thing is you matter. Keep showing up, keep being useful, and be kind. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week. In the meantime, live with grace, lead in. Can't even get my own sign off right. Let me try that again. Live with grace, lead in service, live well, lead well.